Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy. I'm your host, Shayna Davis. Thank you so much for being here today. But before we get started, like always, I have a favor to ask of you. So, wherever you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. With that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at Shayna Rattler Davis. And then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is not so much for the downloads, although sponsors and publishers, they care about those things. But I know that far too many women are seen and just not paid well, and everybody doesn't really know where to start to change that. And so the more times that these episodes are shared, the more people that can be exposed to the shifts that are going to be required in order for them to own their influence. So thank you in advance for being willing to share. I'm going to read my guest bio and then we're going to get it started on a conversation that I've been waiting on for some months now. So I'm really excited about this one. So my guest today is a podcaster and the founder of podmatch.com, a platform that automatically matches podcast hosts and guests for interviews. Through Podmatch and his podcast titled Podcasting Made Simple, he helps independent podcasters grow their influence and revenue so they can better serve their listeners. I'm excited to welcome to the show Alex Sanfilippo.
Shannon, thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this, and I know we've known each other for years now, so this is just kind of like a cool experience to be able to share this room with you today.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here. So, this month's theme on the show is all about podcasting. The first three episodes have been from the hosting perspective. And today we're going to look at the other side of the microphone and look at ways that we can grow our influence and grow our empires and brands by being a guest on other people's shows. And so, I'm curious, what is the biggest misconception about podcast guesting?
There's a lot of them. I'd say that the biggest one though is that all shows are created equal is kind of the big one. And what I mean by that is yes, there's the really big shows. There's also the really small ones. And some people just assume like, well, if I can get on the big ones, I'm going to do really well. And the reality of it is sometimes the smaller ones are a better fit. And for me, I found that to be true. I've been very fortunate to be on some very large podcasts that didn't really move the needle for me because the audience wasn't who I actually speak to. They didn't resonate with me. I didn't resonate with them. It might have been a good episode, might have been entertaining, but the reality is it wasn't really the right fit. And so I saw like a minimal return on investment of my time. It's still worth it. I would still do it. I'm all about adding value and serving. But I found that there's some smaller niche podcasts, and sometimes they have 20 to 30 people listening. And some people are like, oh man, is that really worth your time? And to me, it is if it's the right people. And I always try to view podcasting as something different than social media. This is the other big misconception is that we are preconditioned by social media numbers. So we say, hey, if there's not tens of thousands of people listening, it's not worth it because that would be like a small social media channel. But the reality is, social media does have its place, but it is not the same as podcasting. The way I view podcast listenership is like people sitting in seats with the host and the guest on stage. And to me, if there's a room of 20 people, even 10 people, that are the people that I can ideally help and serve, I'm going to go to that stage any opportunity that I get. And so for many of us, we just have to kind of reframe our thinking of it doesn't have to be the biggest show, and it's not the same as social media. We have to look for the right audience. And even if it's a small one, can we still help and serve that small audience and possibly have a good return on investment of our time from that?
I'm so glad that you said that because I made that mistake in the beginning when I first started guesting 6, 7 years ago, whenever it was, is that my assumption is, well, I'm gonna tell you, I was just being vain. I wanted to be able to say that I was on Entrepreneur on Fire. I wanted to be able to say that I was on some of the recognizable names. But we have to recognize that for many of us that are guesting, the reason why we're guesting is because we're using that as a marketing strategy. And what good are vanity metrics, which is one of the things that the reason why my show exists is that you have all this visibility, but is it really funneling into something that is going to benefit you? And I love that you also said that because as a host, I've been fortunate enough to grow my show into the top 3% in the world, and people will pitch themselves. And even though they don't flat out say this, I know oftentimes people want to be on the show because of the amount of growth that I've had. But I'm like, listen, it's not even just about whether or not I think you're a good fit, but what is this going to do for your business? What is this going to do for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish? Because you don't even sell what my audience is looking for, and you don't even like it's not even a shared audience. So it's like we've got to get outside of vanity metrics and recognizing that we have to look for things that are going to be valuable, and just having notoriety or having a big name associated with it, if it doesn't do anything for you beyond that, like what good is it?
That's so well said, and I really respect what you've done with the show, and you've done exceptionally well in podcasting, Shayna. You have a great reputation in the space among podcast hosts, and obviously your guests love you and listeners too. With what you just said, it makes me think of a friend. I'm not allowed to give his name because he doesn't want his podcast to get big. That
Okay.
already sounds wild to people, right? He brings guests in to come share, but he says, I'm never going to have more than 30 people listening or less than 20. It's between that number. And a lot of people are
Okay.
like, why would you limit yourself? Like, why don't you want people to know about your podcast? His podcast is only for founders of companies that he believes have the opportunity to become a unicorn, $1 billion valuation within the next 5 years. And so he actually has an application to even be allowed to listen to his podcast. Now, here's the thing: if I'm like focused on the vanity metric, like, no, I don't want to go to your podcast. There's only 20 people there. If they're the future 20 billionaires in the world, like you can't say that's not valuable, right? And like for me, that's actually not my audience, so I wouldn't be a right fit for that show. But for some of us that are like, hey, we're serving B2B or big brands, helping them like take where they are to the next level, helping them find funding, like that is a great room to be in, probably better than any other room. Even if there was 10 to 100,000 people listening, if you've got that 20 people, that's a huge deal. And so it just to kind of reframe a little bit, I'm not saying that like it all has to be the dollars, the money. You might be somebody who's supporting moms that are maybe dealing with postpartum. I know people that have that. It's a smaller show, but I'll tell you what, the impact that a show like that has, I mean, it's like there's no second place to it, right? Like it's just absolutely serving people on such a high level and very, very deep.
So let's talk about opportunities because I feel like it's a natural segue from what we're talking about now. What are some of the opportunities that we can tap into when we're guesting beyond just like growing our audience? What are some of the other opportunities that can come out of guesting?
Yeah, my favorite one. I call this like kind of the hidden value of podcast guesting is what it does for you as an individual, as a speaker, as a communicator, as an author. Whatever it is that you do, you're going to get asked questions. They're going to make you think, and you're going to learn to communicate really well in real time. How like answering those questions, right? For me, I'm still not like the best communicator, and I'm always working on that, growing, right? But I'll tell you this: 5 years ago, before I was guesting compared to now, it's night and day different. And the only thing I've really done has been a guest on podcasts. Yes, I have my own as well, but I've done a lot of guesting, and it's taught me to really think very quickly on my feet. And again, to hone in what I know. Like I'm very good at avoiding the wrong shows now because I'm like, you're gonna stump me on a question, I'm not gonna have any clue how to answer it, and I'm gonna be stuttering all over the place, right? But like I know my lane, and it's helped me to go to become more and more of an expert in it. I don't know who like originally coined this, but there's this idea: if you want to get really good at something, teach it,
Yeah.
right? Like you want to step into that teacher seat. This helps you be able to do that. I'm not saying fake it till you make it or anything like that, but this can really help you. And to me, that's like the big hidden value of it. Beyond that, it's just the ability to serve somebody who's listening to something with intent. So
Yeah.
again, social media and podcasting is different. I'll use that as it's a very easy um, example to talk about. Now, again, I mean, nothing wrong, like no ill words toward get like being a or being on social media. Like it's fine, has its place. But I find a lot of people like that's where we go when we're tired, we're waiting in line, we're trying to kill time, right? And so a lot of time spent doing that. But when someone says I'm loading up a podcast, it's typically a very intentional effort. They're looking for what they want to hear. They're putting it in their ears. They're going for a walk. They're cooking. They're cleaning. They're working out. Whatever it is that we're all doing, right? And then we're actually listening to something because we're expecting some form of transformation. And for me, like that is a beautiful thing. Being a guest, like that is extremely valuable that somebody is trusting you with their ears for like 20, 30, 45 minutes, right? Like whatever it might be. And I find that to be just like a really beautiful side of it. So to me, like that visibility, that ability to build out your reputation is absolutely huge because someone's going to hear your name later. This happens to me all the time now. People are like, I heard you on a podcast like 4 years ago. Like, I totally know you're the type of person I want to work with. And it's like, man, that was 4 years ago, but they developed that know, like, and trust because they had the opportunity to hear me. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably like the big benefit is you're developing that know, like, and trust. People can tell within 20 minutes if they like you or not, usually.
I'm glad that you made that distinction because the way I see social media is the average person, if we're talking about like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I know they say YouTube is social media, but I consider that to be more of a search engine and a place that I go to learn. But when you think about the other main social media categories, most people are on those platforms to be entertained. They're not necessarily going to those platforms to solve a problem. They're not necessarily going to that platform to learn something or to really be there for long periods of time. Whereas if we think about podcasting, it's the modern day media vehicle. And just like streaming revolutionized the way people like watched television, podcasting has revolutionized the way people consume content. And so if you're on social media, like you said, most people don't even really have time to find you, let alone pay attention to what you're saying, which is why they're like, hey, you need to have short form content. You've got to get their attention in the first couple of seconds because people are not on there with the intention of being there for long periods of time. And so, again, like you said, both of them have their place. But if you're really looking for a place that you can add value, if you're really looking for a place that can turn into income for you, that can grow your business, that can grow whatever your initiative is, guesting on a podcast is always going to be, in my opinion, and I think you share this opinion, way more advantageous than anything else that's out there. Everything works if you work it, but people are going to podcasts for a specific reason. And typically that's not the same as over on social media.
It's so true. I actually think about how I listen to podcasts. Like, when I'm going to go to social media, it's usually to laugh. I don't know, I want to see something funny. I'm a
Yeah.
software founder, right? So like, I need some disconnect sometimes. But like when I'm listening to a podcast, like example, actually, I'll use one of your episodes as an example, Shana, that I really enjoyed. I believe the girl's name was Lauren Cooley, maybe, and it was back on June 10th, 2024. You had her on, and it was about the intersection of faith and culture. And for me, like that's a topic I'm always trying to navigate. Like I'm a follower of Jesus, and I'm always like I'm in the culture from a podcasting perspective and from a software perspective. And so like I went to that not to just quickly scroll past, but I wanted to listen. What has Lauren learned? And I just want to give this takeaway. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's
Yeah.
totally worth going back and listening to. But she said we're called being missionaries in our sphere of influence. And that reminded me, like, man, I'm here on mission, right? Like I'm a software founder, first and foremost, a follower of Jesus. As a podcast listener, her being a guest, that was a real takeaway that I had that I actually still remember. And so, like, again, that is the power of podcast guesting, developing that know, like, and trust. If Lauren Cooley comes up again, if that's the right way to say her last name, if she comes up, I already know she's the type of person that's my type of person. I'm probably primed and ready to work with her if she comes up, right?
Absolutely. And more people are, and when you connect with something that someone says, you're more likely to say, let me go and see what else Lauren is doing. Let me see if Lauren has her own podcast. Let me see if Lauren has a newsletter. Let me go follow her on social media. And so it's a great starting place because you have unlimited reach and you can have maximum impact if you will just figure out how to guest. Now, you have to know how to guest well, and we're going to talk a little bit about that after we come back from the break. We'll be right back. Ready to turn your influence into income? Take the Influence Growth Assessment. In just minutes, you'll uncover the next steps to grow your visibility, attract bigger opportunities, and boost your profitability. Visit myinfluencestyle.com to take the assessment today. A new era of success is waiting. Let's make it yours. All right, welcome back. So we have Alex Sanfilippo here. If you've been in podcasting for any amount of time, you've been under a rock if you haven't heard about Podmatch. It's the best platform that's out there, in my opinion. And I'm not just saying that because I know, like, and trust Alex. I really believe it. I don't even deal with any of the other ones anymore. But anyway, we won't get into that. We'll talk about that off screen. So let's go into a little bit about like what makes you an effective guest, because you don't have to be perfect, but there are some things that you want to avoid or some things that you kind of want to master. And so what are the ways that we can first become a guest? If we've never guested before, how can we begin to become a guest? Because it can feel daunting.
Yeah, the first time I was a guest, I got invited to it. So I was like, this is cool. The second time I sought it out and I was like, what do I do? This is going back a long time ago. But it was kind of a little terrifying. The first thing I'd say that's really important to have is some sort of media one sheet, something where people can quickly see a lot about you. So for a host, we want to save their time. Um, it can be a lot for hosts. So you want to do your best to save their time. You reference Podmatch, and I'm not here to sell anything. If you're like, I don't have that, Podmatch helps you create one when you're signing up for it, which is a place that you can get guesting opportunities. Beyond that, a lot of people use PDF. They build like a I've been seeing people do it in Canva now recently as well. So there's all kinds of opportunities. But what's on your media one sheet is basically your name, your bio, some pictures people can use, along with a little bit more details about you, maybe some topics you can cover, some other things that you've done or accomplished for more information. You basically want to be this page where there's not going to be any questions from the host about who's Shayna Davis. Like who is this? Like you want them to be able to like, hey, this is your launch pad. Everything you need will be found right here. To me, that's step one. You want to really have that. Beyond that, like it's about doing the outreach. You've got to be willing to do the outreach. There's so many people that kind of want to they'll post on social media like, "Hey, I'm open to being a guest on a podcast," and they kind of get crickets, right? Like, sure, maybe some celebrities can get away with that, but even them, they have to do some outreach as well. They'll hire publicists that will go out there and help them find some shows to get on. Because reality is, podcast host, there's work going on in the background. They're not sitting around waiting for their next person to approach them. Shayna, as you know, I cannot imagine how many people must try to pitch you and on all forms of email and every social channel, everything. I can't imagine what you get. But the reality is you've got to be willing to do that outreach if you want to be a guest.
Absolutely. So we could have an entire episode on mistakes that people make either when they're pitching or when they're on the show. But can you share one? I've got one that I want to share, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Do you want me to focus on the how to do it well or a mistake that you see? Which side should I cover
I
on
think
that?
let's talk about the mistakes because I think most people think that they're getting it right. So I would love if
Yeah.
you would share one mistake that they make when they're pitching and one mistake that they make when they are actually in the interview, and then I'll do the same.
Yeah. So the mistake in the pitch is using the word I too much. I hope that wasn't gonna be your Shayna, but that's the one I'm gonna go with. It's hey, hi Shayna, I'm Alex. I've accomplished this. I want to talk about this. I want to sell this, and I want to be on your show as soon as I possibly can. Like it's just all like you don't see your audience in it. As a host, we look for our audience in what someone's sharing, and if all they're saying is I want to sell my book, I want to be on your podcast, I want to use your platform, me, let me on, please. It's like, okay, well, what does you do to help my audience? And so that's the biggest mistake I see. And for me, that is an immediate red flag that this person is probably not going to be value driven. Someone gave them a quota of how many shows to be on, and they need to get their message out, right? And so the first thing you want to do is just reposition it. And sorry, I don't mean to go into teacher mode, but reposition it
Oh,
as the value for the listener. That's what's really, really important. So think about the host and their listener first and foremost. When people are on a podcast, I think it's the hard selling. Um, and I know like one of the things you talk about in the show is like we're seen, but we're not paid well. And I think part of being paid well is not being pushy, right? It's instead building that relationship. I talked about know, like, and trust earlier. Instead of saying like, hey, I'm not going to talk about chapter 3. You got to buy the book if you want to hear about that. Put it all out there. And I found like the guests that have converted the best on my show are the ones that do not want to leave anything untold, untalked about. They're willing to go anywhere. They're willing to spill the secrets. I've even had some guests be like, hey, you don't even need to buy the book. Let me just tell you the premise of it. And like,
yeah.
here's what it is. And they're always the ones that sell the most copies of their books, get the most coaching clients because people are like, I can trust this individual. They're not holding anything back. And so for me, it's not having your guard up as a guest. Be willing to go there. It was actually an episode of your show. Um, Janin Mix, I think was her name, talking about wealth habits.
Yeah.
And she said, like, don't let your failure define you, let it refine you. And for her,
Right.
she was willing to share all kinds of things that weren't just like, I'm successful, I've crushed it. She shared like the good, bad, and the ugly. And
Yeah.
I think that we need to understand that that's okay to do.
And that's a mindset shift for sure. I years ago I told myself because I actually had people I do a lot of speaking, not just podcast guesting, but just speaking in general. And I spoke at an event in San Diego quite some time ago. And the host pulled me to the side afterwards and was like, "You answer way too many questions. That's sabotaging your sales." And I said, "Well, here's what I know. Number one, I know just from a mindset principle and just like the way that my belief system is that if I wake up chasing money, it's always going to be running from me. But if I wake up asking myself, who can I help today? Then money is always going to chase me. And there's nothing in the confines of an interview or on a stage that I'm going to be able to share everything that I know. And I just believe that when I am in an engagement, whatever that is, My goal and my responsibility is to make sure that anyone who has invested their time or their money for that time slot gets as much as I have to give them. Now, if it's something that I'm like, hey, there's no way that I can teach you in depth all four steps, but I'm at least going to give you enough of those four steps that you don't feel like, well, what that was just a complete waste of my time. So it's a mindset shift that we have to adopt, that we have to recognize that you want to give so much value that people ask the question, OMG, if he or she gave me this much value, imagine how much more value I would get if I actually invested with them. Because if not, let me tell you this, and I've said this before, nowadays, there are people out there that took a course to learn how to launch a course, and they really don't even know how to speak or teach beyond sound bites. So, you listen to the little snippets they say in their interview or on stage, and then you buy your program and you're like, where's the value? Anyway, so here's my two. My biggest mistake that I get when I'm being pitched is I'm not going to do the work for you. Don't just reach out to me and say that you think that you would be a great fit. Tell me why and tell me what your angle would be. Because you could be a great guest, but I don't have time to go down the rabbit hole of looking at your profile, searching around to see where I could put you or whether or not you would be a good fit. So if you think that you would be a good fit, tell me why. Tell me what your angle would be, especially if you offer something that can be as general as marketing. You can't just say, like, I've been doing marketing all these times. Well, how would you approach a specific angle if I had you on the show? Because I want to be able to just briefly look at your pitch and then see if I want to dig further. I don't want to look at your pitch and then have to dig further to see if I even want to respond. So that's the mistake that I see so much when being pitched. And the mistake that I see when you're in the interview, and most people this probably does not bother, but it is the biggest pet peeve of mine. Every question they ask you before you answer, you say, that's a good question. Of course, it's a good question. I asked it, right? Like I thought about what I was going to ask you before you got here. To me, it's like, it feels like a stall tactic that you're really trying to give yourself time to figure out the answer. And the reality is that who can speak more efficiently and effectively about what you do other than you. So please stop doing that. Every question, oh, that's a good question. And then you give the answer. And then they ask the next question. That's a good question. It's just filler space that can be quite annoying. And I'm easily annoyed. So maybe that's just my thing. But yeah, don't quit saying that.
Oh man, that makes me think. Like, I think you're right. People stall. Oh, that's a good question. It means I need to think about that when I've not been asked that, which is good. But I actually had a guest and say that, but in a different way that was really good. He said, "Wow, no one's asked me that question that way before. That's a true gift, Alex. Here's how
Yes,
I would answer that." And I was like, "Man, that's a great way to say that instead, right?" I don't know if he was
exactly.
stalling, but it felt so much more authentic. But I'm with
It,
you. Every question's a good question because you asked it.
And then they to do it on every single one, it just I don't know, it just doesn't make for a good interview. So stop doing that. Anyway, Alex, you are a wealth of information, and we really could talk about how we can guest all day long because it is a huge thing. I actually, for me, I recommend it over almost anything else that's out there. I just think it's a great opportunity. It doesn't require me to leave home. And it's done a lot for my business and my life being on both sides of the microphone. So I am hashtag podcast all day long. So if people want to learn more from you, if they want to go further with you, what social media handle do you recommend they follow you on?
So I've got two that I do really well, Facebook and LinkedIn. So
Okay.
Facebook and LinkedIn are my two. Alex Sanfilippo on both of them. So pretty easy to find. Just up to preference. If you message me, comment, you're going to hear back from me. I don't have any virtual assistant helping me with that or anything like that. So it's always me. I really love frontline communication. So yep, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. And if someone is listening to this and they're like, you know what, I want to do better with guesting, or I want to do more guesting. Hopefully they walked away from this going, I need to guest more, more, more. What would you like to offer them?
Yeah, if you go to podmatch.com/free, podmatch.com/free, it'll give you some quick ideas on how you can become a better guest, or if you're new, it can teach you how to become a guest. And the whole idea is just give me some quick wins. I don't need your email address or anything like that, just to help you level up and get on this right foot. In addition, hang with Shayna right here because this is like this is some good information. I love what you shared here. I think it was beautiful. But if you want a little bit more information, podmatch.com/free.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, he's not saying it, but I'm going to tell you that you should join Podmatch. I've been podcasting now. I've been guesting for a lot longer than I've been hosting. I've been hosting now for 5 years. And it's gotten to the point that outside of the fact that, yes, there are PR agents that pitch me, it's not hard for my show to be found anymore. So I do get pitched by agencies. Or from different booking agencies and stuff like that. But in terms of what I use and what my team use, I started out using a lot of them and I only use Podmatch now. And I say that because of the quality. The platform is very easy to use regardless of the which side of the mic that you're on, but the quality of the people are really good. There's some other platforms out there that the quality of the people, I think they may have just fallen off the turnip truck this morning, last night at best, and you won't find that here. And so he may not brag on his stuff, but I'll brag on it for him. He and his wife have done a fabulous job. I've been there since close to the beginning. I've been part of this platform for a very long time. And so, regardless of which side of the microphone that you are on, I hands down recommend that you join Podmatch as a host and as a guest. It will change your life. So, everyone, share this information with any woman or anyone that you know that needs to be seen more on podcasts and needs to use guesting as a strategy. Alex, thank you so much again for being here. Everyone, I hope that you'll go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone, have a great day. Bye bye.